So this time round, we are going to talk about applique. And this is probably going to be more of a two-part video because there are so many ways to applique. It's amazing. You can do raw edge, you could do fold over machine applique, you can do embellished applique where it's more than just a simple straight stitch. You can do like a buttonhole stitch or a zigzag. You can do hand applique. There's like 16 probably different ways to do hand applique. So I'm just gonna go quickly through applique. So one of my favorite resources for applique are coloring pages, the free coloring pages you get on the internet. Now, I don't necessarily use them all the time in my applique, but I'll take something like, okay, here's today's flower. It's really cute. It's really simple, which makes it great for applique. So I've taken this and I've gone and I've made just a simple little flower. That one's 7 petal, this one's 6. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it is there. It's really cute. So there's my pattern. I'm gonna do 4 on a 12.5-inch block here. So I'm gonna do 2 purples, 2 yellows, and I'm gonna do this green connecting as a stem. So the first type of applique I'm gonna show you is what's called raw edge. So there's just a couple of tricks to that. You are going to need a pair of just paper scissors. And these are my good sewing scissors. So these will also do, but these aren't the ones I use because these just cut fabric and they're over there. I can just see them. These are my scissors that I would use to cut out my applique. They're nice and small. They're pretty sharp. They go in there and they get those corners that I want to get. So this is what I'm going to use because there's certain tricks to it. So I'm going to go over the first one. And we'll just kind of make it work from there. So this is a light fusible webbing. It's really good for raw edge applique and even machine applique. So I'm going to go over and we just put it on top there. And we're going to trace our pattern right here. Normally, I would finagle this and get it as close as possible to my edges, and it's not perfect. That's okay because flowers in the wild aren't perfect. I'm not a perfect quilter. I am a creative quilter, I guess one would call me. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place that. So one thing you need to be aware of is when you are drawing out your applique pieces, because you're putting it on the back of your applique pieces, and this one doesn't matter because it's non-directional. So if it was an arrow pointing this way, when you flip it over, okay, maybe an arrow is not a good way to point it, but if you want it in a certain direction, you have to flip it over and look at that. It's kind of like paper piecing, if you're familiar with paper piecing. So you do have to be aware of certain directions. So I've gone out, I've traced that. I take my paper scissors, and this is the most important part, or one of the most important parts. You're not going to cut out on the lines. When you adhere it to your fabric, that is when you would want to cut it out on the paper. Once you want to cut out your fabric, we're gonna, iron it onto our fabric and we're going to cut it out. So one thing about applique is I know in here I'm not going to need that. These edges are where I'm going to applique. So what I tend to do is I cut it out and I just leave just over 1/4 of an inch around the edges. So I don't need to use all of the applique piece. Now, I would recommend a good quality fusible webbing because you don't want something that's too poor. So off we go. Gonna applique it here to my, adhere it here to my little purple one. Another one of my little tricks is, I always like, these are $40 tables from just a local superstore or, you know, big box center. I've got my wool ironing pad. It's one of my favorite things. And I've got my little mini iron. So here we go. We just do a quick iron on. And there we go. We've got it adhered. We're nice and stuck. So we're gonna let it cool off because my iron's quite hot. So this is where we would grab our scissors here. Okay, so when we just cut out, this is where we cut out on the line, and it's not perfect. And another thing I don't like, I'm not a very harsh angled person, so I'm gonna make these a little curved. I don't want the point, I want the curve. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that out as it works. And yes, I have a cat, he's a bit of a jerk. He threw my scissors on the floor, and I have a chewy dog and she's chewed them, and I just make them work as broken. So there I am, I'm just cutting away. And if you had cut right on your lines before you had fused your applique, or you had fused the webbing, the fusible webbing it's called, you would be having a lot harder of a time. It's really hard to do it. It's just better to cut a little extra and work with that. So there is my little imperfect flower. I'm gonna put a yellow center in the purple ones and a purple center in the yellow ones. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to get those all cut out, and then I will show you how I put them on the background fabric. On in the video for block 2 for our peonies, because we make our peony stem this way. I've gone and I've marked diagonally the center, and I'm just gonna, my flowers, I've made my flowers. I told you cut it out for the first one. I went and I made 2 where I forgot to cut it out, remembered, cut out the 4th. It's not a big deal, but it's just, if you look, it's a little more pliable, it's a little more bendy. Sorry, I'm doing it to me, not to you. And this one, not so much. Okay, it's a little more stiffer. Just makes your quilt a little stiffer. If it's a quilt that you're gonna use and put in the washing machine, no big deal. If you're putting it in a show, you might wanna do this. Just, it shows better. It also makes it a little bit easier to quilt up, because unfortunately one of the things with this is it does make your needle go a little gooey. Not horribly so, and it's just, I just, you know, run my finger down it a couple times and it comes off when I go to sew something else. It doesn't actually adhere permanently to the other fabric that you're sewing afterwards. So I don't make that big of a deal of it. Some people, there is a coating you can put on it, a silicone coating, I think, and that just prevents sticking. I have heard the slower you sew, your needle doesn't heat up as much, so it doesn't get as sticky either. But that's it. So now I need to mark and decide where my flowers are gonna go. And I'm gonna need one of my rulers for that. Because I'm gonna decide, oh, they wanna go a certain distance away. Okay, so I've marked my center. I guess I should have shown that. I've gone and I've marked my center, and I've done it diagonally instead of, you know, horizontally that way, because I want to measure this distance, not this distance. So that's why it's done this way. I'll show you that when we go to our applique block. For now, I just did it really quick because that's what I need. I need to get it done quick. As I have a dying lily at the window. She's being made to stay inside, and when I'm done doing this, I'll let her out. So measuring that gives me 3 inches to the center. So, no, 2.5 inches to the center. So we're just gonna open her up and put her there. This is the hard part. It's, you know, you have to get it separated, and it is a little bit sticky. But there we go. This isn't one of the ones, sometimes when you use them, they're sticky on the back. This one isn't. So I'm actually gonna grab my pins and use my pins. So a quick little pin, make sure it's corner to corner there. At the 2.5. Yeah. They don't have to be perfect. Okay. Oh, take her back off. Don't get ahead of yourself. So we've got our little 4 flowers. Now let's go ahead and we're going to add our stem. Once again, this doesn't have to be perfect. Give a little extra always, because you can trim down after, but you can't add on as you need. Okay, so our stems go underneath, and I'm just gonna quickly pin base those. Normally you have your pattern already designed for you. Okay, so we want to make sure our stems go in behind. So I think I'm gonna just do and apply those with a really sweet little running stitch. This one needs to be just a little more this way, I think. We want a little bit of curve. It's not gonna look like a perfect circle, but it will look like the circle. So reviewing yesterday's video, you didn't get a very good view of anything actually. So here is my needle, kind of hidden in there with my running stitch, and I'll just give that a quick pull through. And there you go, there's just a very simple view of my running stitch, and as contrasty as I thought it was, it's not contrasting all that well, but you kind of do see it running along there. The camera doesn't do it justice. So there is my running stitch, and as I said, I'll just do a simple in and a out, and another little in, whoops, and that happens a lot. I lose my place. So just to also mention, because you didn't see it very good on the earlier part, but here is my thread, and I lay my thread out on top of the fabric that I want to applique, and that's how I choose sometimes my quilting thread and also my applique. So It's nice and contrast. You actually see it better contrasted against the green now than you do when I actually do the stitch there. So that is how I decide on my colors. Sometimes they blend, sometimes they don't. All depending on the effect you want. I'm just going to do a couple more stitches so you kind of get what I'm doing. And as you can see, I leave my pins in until I go and I do that opposite side. So this side, I'm doing this side right now. I'm going to go when I do to this side. I still leave my pins in. I find that if I don't have my pins to stabilize my fabric, the bottom fabric that I'm appliquing to sometimes shifts and moves with what I want to applique on top. And I don't want that. I want it to be as smooth and seamless as I possibly can get. So I just leave my pins in, and I know it just doesn't move then, and then I have a nicer, flatter piece of applique. Sorry, my fingers are getting in the way. But there we go, in and out, in and out. They're not perfect, they're not completely symmetrical, but you see how my needle goes in and out? That's the effect you're looking for. So I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna finish till I get to my flower parts, and then I'll show you. I haven't ironed them on, so they're not stabilized yet, so I'll show you how to do those in the next step. So I'm just trying to get you a really good view there of that running stitch. And as I was saying on the other video, I really do like to use the running stitch for stems. I would not recommend it for something that's going to go in the wash 900 times. I would actually recommend the running stitch on using that from your sewing machine. And that is what I'm going to do with our flowers here. Sorry, we're very shadowy. We've moved locations. I'm actually now officially in my quilting room. And as you can see, I still have a wall to paint. Hubby built me this fabulous sewing table. Unfortunately, I told him to make it 36 inches high because I wanted it higher than a normal kitchen table. It's not working. So I gave him the wrong information, and sadly on his next day off, he's going to have to redo that. Poor man. Poor hubby. So that is the simple running stitch. And as you can see, sorry, I'm trying to get you a good view here with the light on it, which isn't going. Nope, that doesn't help at all. Okay, there's our good running stitch. As you can see, I do go wonky. Right there, I got a little wonky stitch right there. I have to keep ahead of you. So this is my block. It's not perfect. When you do go to use a block like this, you're going to get a pattern that is going to be properly drafted out. So this is a hand quilting course I took many, many years ago. And this is the pattern you get. It is a quarter of your block. So you fold your block in half and in half again, and you trace this out. So you do get a proper trace out in it. So this is what the block would look like completed. But nicer done because you've got such a good pattern to follow. I free bombed mine. It's not perfect, but I think I might make that into a pillow, or I might put it into just a quilt to get done. I'm not too sure about that. So that's that. I do have a little ironing station off to the side there. I've got my mini iron for just when I'm doing small piecing and applique. This is also the Clover, like, micro iron. Mine is an old version because you can tell it does not have a finger guard. They now have it that you, there's a guard here, more plastic, because when you're in the moment and you are sewing or ironing, as I have been known to do, and you need that little extra pressure, I have gone and used that, and yeah, it's a 2nd degree burn because this whole area gets hot. So if you're going to buy one, I would strongly recommend getting one with the guard on this side as well, not just the bottom side, but on the top side as well. Other than that, I really do love it. I just really have to pay strong attention to, don't touch this. It is really good for when you're doing the fold over applique, which I will be showing you on the next video. It's the applique process that I use very, very frequently, and it's one of my favorites. So that is my little ironing station. It's mobile, so it can move closer to me. And then I have my little cutting station here with my rotary cutters and my cutting mat. I also have, as you can see hidden here, the pattern for number 2. I just have to scan that. This is, I know I told some of you, but this is the fabric that I call the stripe fabric. So it has both the blossom bouquets and the stripes. Just wanted to make you aware of that because some of you with your samplers, you got the piece, you got the flower bouquet piece, and some of you got the stripe piece. So it's a little confusing, but that is what it looks like in entirety. So there you go. Also, for the people that want to follow along and try my blocks, I will put a link in the description below for block 1. And when I do the video for block 2, I put the link for the blocks for block 2 in that. For now, I think that's it. I'm going to set up my machine and the camera for the appliquing of the flowers and the ironing on of the flowers. So I'll see you in a bit. We've had change, so I have a little piece of Velcro here. Very sweet little piece. Her name is Hazel. She doesn't do well with it. She's getting a little old. Very lovable. So she's my little piece of Velcro. So I have brought out my water marker, and before I go and iron that, I am going to try and mark this. It's going to be a little hard because I've got the gold lame there. The reason I'm doing that is because we don't want too much shadowing through, and that green, we want minimal amount on the green. I'm going to take those pins out now that I have a pin cushion nearby. Right, this is extra layered, so we're going to use our good scissors. I've got the iron heating, and I'm just going to take those down and have minimal amount of thread on there. Okay, so we are ready just to go and iron on there. And what do I have it on? Maximum. Probably should turn it down. Don't need it on the extra hot. So that is just a quick one, and I like to iron it from both sides. So this is the top side. I'm ironing from the top. Go from the back and do our back. So I do like my little iron. Like I said, it's great for when you're piecing things or when you're doing this kind of applique. It's perfect. I also really like, this is my wool mat, and I do believe it's like the 14 inch by 14 inch, which is perfect because it does, okay, it's a 13 inch by 13 inch, but it does fit a 12.5 inch block on it, which is your standard size of quilt block. And it really helps when you're pressing to open up your seams. It is by far the best thing I have ever purchased. I think this is probably my favorite, even more so than my stitch ripper, which is the Bernina stitch ripper, which is my favorite stitch ripper. It's the tiniest and it is the sharpest. And yeah, love my Bernina stitch ripper. I've used many stitch rippers throughout my whole life. Bernina is my favorite. So I will go and I will transfer that to the machine. All right. Don't be afraid to lift your presser foot up. I'm getting a little close there to the edge, so okay, so I've gone just over the edge here. So let's pull that out. Give this a trim. I'm not going to stress because I know this is something that is going to be very easily fixed. Very easily fixed. So let's just pull back 2 stitches to where we are happy. And let's do this one while we're at it. Okay, you just have to tie a knot with the 2 strings. Just as simple as that. Now, how did I know just to pull back the 2 stitches? I counted before I flipped it over. So I knew the 2 stitches. So now I very carefully lower my needle into that last stitch where I finished off. And I continue from there. And it's a little extra hard for me because I am a little short on the end here, unfortunately. And I'm just using the one hand because I know if I use my left hand, I'm going to be blocking you, and I really don't want to do that. And I just continue to sew along. And that's something you want to be very careful about, is you don't want to be moving your needle. So you do it very gently. Don't do it rough. Don't do it fast. Another thing, if you go slow, you don't stress yourself out because you don't make the mistakes as much. You're a little more pleased with your work. Right? And when in doubt, lift your presser foot up and just move along. Hit the end. Once again, I want that big long loop of thread as I tie it out at the back. All right, now let's go on to our yellow one.